got, I told you we have the class by. Okay, the by class has got the mechanisms used to locate the element within a document. Okay, and I told you that there are many mechanisms, and the easiest ones were if the element is having an ID or a linked text or a name. It is really easy to identify the element. Okay, now let us see how. All right, I'll just make a new Java project, J5, and I'll include the jar files. Okay, right. So over here, let me just make a new class. Say uh, we will go to zoho.com. And we'll write the code, or let me take the code from here. So we will go to zoho.com, and if I run this, hold on. If I run this, see, Chrome browser is going to launch, and see, Zoho has opened. Okay, I'll go to the sign in page. Okay. Now suppose you have to type something in this email ID text field. Okay. And uh, uh, over here, if you inspect the sign in text field, right? If you look at this text field carefully, it's got an ID. And if an element is having an ID, it is really easy to identify the element. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to write the command. Most of you must be heard about, most of you must have heard about it. Driver.find element. So driver.find element, this is find element function is inside this find element function is inside the WebDriver interface. It's out here. Yeah. It is inside the WebDriver interface. Okay. And if you look at it, this is the find element function, finds the first element using the given method. So you have to tell by which criteria you have to find the element. So everything in the by class is static. You can call it with the class name. You can write by dot id. When you write by dot, you get all the locator strategies which are present in the by class. ID, link text, name, partial link text, tag name. Okay. So over here, you can give this ID. The ID of an element is unique. There are no two elements, or there should not be two elements on the web page which have the same ID. So this ID has to be unique, and you have to substitute the ID over here. So this will go and find the element, and this function in the WebDriver interface returns the reference of something known as web element. Web element is an interface again, which represents general HTML elements. Look, on a web page, if there is a button, then the button is falls under web element. A link falls under web element. Okay, every element on the web page falls under the web element interface. Okay, a text field is a web element. Okay, and these are the functions which can be performed over web elements, like if it is selected, if it is enabled, if it is displayed, get text. Okay, these are the general functions which can be fired on the web element. Click, clear. All right. So this command returns you the reference of web element interface. I'll call it as, say, username. Import it. Now what do you have to do with this username? To type inside it. To type, the command is send keys. If you look at the documentation in web element, the send keys function use this method to simulate typing into the element. Username dot send keys. I'll just write any username ABC, and if I run this code, you see that, right? And if I have to click on the next button as well, if you look at the next button, this is the button. Okay, this was the ID. This was the name field, login field, right? It's got many attributes. Okay, it's also got name, which is login ID. Okay, if I want, I can identify it with the name as well. This is the name. I've put up the name from here. Okay. And if I run this code, okay, so hold on. Yeah, you see that? Okay. Now, if you have to look at this next button. Okay, so the ID is next button. So what you'll have to do is that you'll have to write web element button equals to driver dot find element by the ID of the next button. And what do you want to do with the web element? Okay, button, I want to click on it. Okay, so when you run this code, you see that it clicks on it. It was very fast. And the sign in page where you have to enter the password, it comes up. It was actually very fast. All right, fine. So you have this particular code. Now to interact with one element, you have to first find the web element and then you have to write the code which interacts with the web element. Okay. You can do all these things in one line instead of two lines. Okay, you can comment this, write this line and directly write dot send keys ABC and can write this and directly write dot click. What happens is that the execution starts from the left side. Okay, and first the web element is evaluated. Okay, and then on that web element, we have the send keys function. Okay, so driver.find element by the name of the web element dot send keys or dot click. Fine. So this will also produce the same result. You see that it was quite fast and it entered the user ID and then hit the enter button, and that's why this page came up. So this is how things work, you first extract the element and then type inside it.
How do we remember all of these commands? Is it only by practice or
Only
because?
by practice.
Oh, okay.
You have to use driver.find element always. Okay, and the locator strategy can change. It can be ID, name, and if the element is not present on the web page, sorry, no, if the ID or name is not present on the web page, then there are other locator strategies we are going to talk about. Okay, now, uh, you know, what if, what if you give a wrong locator? Okay, so if you run this code, before the page loads itself, it's throwing an exception. The exception is no such element exception. Now in Java, what is an exception? Okay, it's something where we don't want to reach actually. It's a place where we don't want to be. So if the element is not found on the web page, the program will stop on that particular line and it will throw an exception. And when the exception gets thrown, you have to understand the exception by reading it. Okay, let me take an example with you. Let me explain you exceptions in Java language. Suppose you write a program system.out.println a. Okay, so I have written a and b, and in between I have written 9 divided by 3. So if you run this, this will print a and b. This is good. Okay, however, instead of 3, if I put up 0. Okay, so when you run this, you get an exception, arithmetic divided by 0 exception. And it also tells you that it's on the line number 6 of exceptions.java. So it tells you the line number as well. This is the 6th line, right? Okay, so it becomes easy if you click on this, the line will have highlighted. It becomes easy to find the line number on which the error comes up. Right. Now, exceptions can be avoided with the help of try catch block. All the lines which are capable of throwing the exception, you can put them in try catch block. Okay. If the control reaches the catch block, that means some exception has come up. Okay, if I write 9 divided by 3, and if I run this, this prints A and B. But at the same time, if I write 9 divided by 0, it prints exception came. So that means once the exception is shown on this line, the control comes inside the catch block and prints exception came. Okay, if I just write over here, A1, A1 and B1. So in the try block, I have three lines now. This is the line, and before and after this, I have printed A1 and B1. I'll write 9 divided by 3, and when you run this, you see it prints everything A1, B1, B. However, if I write 9 divided by 0, and if I run this, so it prints A1, then exception came and B. It never printed B1. If exception comes on a particular line, the program exits the try block on that particular line and reaches the catch block. Once the catch block is over, it will continue the program normally. But if exception comes up on a particular line, the code after that line is not executed inside the try block. Okay, so after this particular line, whatever other lines will not be executed if an exception is coming up. So in our Zoho program, we had given a wrong ID. If you run this again, so you get the exception, no such element exception. And if you read this carefully, if you scroll down, it will tell you that the line number on Zoho.java, line number 32, the exception is coming up. If you click on this line, the link, the line number also gets highlighted. So you exactly know where the exception has come up. We do prefer to give the codes under try catch block in Selenium as well. We'll talk about that later on. But yes, you can build your script. You can put it in try catch block in order to recover from errors. All right. Now I had given a wrong ID. Sometimes what happens is that once the page loads, it takes a little while for the element to load. Maybe it is an Ajax based component wherein once the page loads, sometimes you get their loading icon, right? That even if the page has loaded, the components inside the page, they keep on loading separately. Okay, so you have sometimes you have the element which loads late, a little late on the page. So you have to wait for it. Okay, one of the ways which can be like used is that you can use thread.sleep a 20 seconds. So what is thread.sleep 20 seconds? This means pause the program for 20 seconds. So if you run this, the program will halt on this particular line for 20 seconds. See, nothing is happening. The program is just stuck on this particular line, right? And after 20 seconds, it's throwing the exception. One way is this, but this is a very crude type of a solution. That is, you are just pausing the program. If the element is appears in say 2 seconds, then you are unnecessarily waiting for 18 more seconds. I hope you got my point. That is, thread.sleep is a temporary solution over here. So what we do is that we don't use thread.sleep. Okay. After the browser launches, we give something known as implicit wait. Okay. Now what is implicit wait? You have to write the command driver dot manage dot timeouts dot implicitly wait duration of seconds, say 20. So command will make Selenium wait for 20 seconds, but there are two things. This is a global command. This just has to be given once after opening the browser. Okay. And this command is applicable to all driver.find element commands. So this particular command is applicable to all the driver.find element commands. Okay, and this command is dynamic. If you are writing driver.find element command and the element is not found, it will wait maximum for 20 seconds, but it will continuously keep on finding the element. If the element is found, it will use it and it will move forward. So this particular command is dynamic. It will not pause your program for 20 seconds. Okay, so if the element is found in the 5th second, it's going to use it and move forward. So if you run the program now, right, so it will go to the website, it will try to find the element, it will keep on polling the web page. Obviously that polling you cannot see, right? But it will keep on checking the web page for the element with the ID login ID X, right? And see, after 20 seconds, it's throwing an exception. Output is same as the previous one, but if the element appears within 5 seconds, it's going to use it. Anyone with any doubts in this? Anyone?
Ashish, would this be like a runtime exception or like how do we differentiate runtime and configuration errors?
Look, runtime exception, this is a runtime.
Yeah, and
It comes when you are running.
right. So, can you brief out on configuration errors?
There is no configuration error, there is a compilation error. For
Oh,
example,
sorry. Yeah, compilation. Sorry.
if I don't give a semicolon over here,
Mm-hmm.
it won't even let me run. It will give you an error.
So, compilation errors would be more in terms of the syntax, like syntax errors.
Yeah,
Compilation. Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
Once our syntax is good, you're running it, then it will throw you an error. That's runtime.
Okay, thank you.
Ashish,
Yes.
suppose in script we have three elements which we are unable to locate. So for every those three elements, script will wait for 20 seconds.
Uh, Suppose the first element takes 5 seconds to load, it will wait for 5 seconds. Then if the second element wait it takes 10 seconds to load, it will wait for 10 seconds. So this is applicable to all driver.findElement commands.
Okay.
Okay. If the element doesn't appear for 20 seconds, then it will stop the program and throw an exception. Okay. So basically, everything in Selenium is inbuilt. Okay. There is no rocket science, nothing. All the commands, everything is inbuilt inside Selenium. All right. Fine. Now, moving ahead, there's one more question that what if two elements on the web page have the same ID? It should not happen. It should not be happening that two elements on the same web page have the same ID. But if two elements on the web page have the same ID, then what's going to happen? Look, Selenium, when it scans for the element on the web page, it scans the web page from the left side to the right side like this and goes down. Okay. And if there are two elements which have the same ID, then to look to locate those elements, you will have, suppose there are two elements like this. And if you write driver.findElement command, and if you look at the documentation, then the find element documentation says that finds the first web element. Okay, so it will use this particular web element. It's going to use this particular web element and it will not use this one. Suppose if you have to use this one, then there are ways I'm going to tell you about those ways. Okay. So when you have a web page having two elements with it never happens that two elements have same ID, but sometimes the developers they give by mistake. Suppose the same element is on the web page for two times. Okay, then you have this thing, right? Now I told you about two things. That is, you have this element. Suppose if it is not present on the web page, or what if the element is present two times. Okay. Now, what if the element is not having ID or a name? Like, for example, if you have to click on, say, this learn more button, right? Hold on. It's becoming slow. Just a minute. Yeah. So if you investigate this learn more link, it's got no ID or name. Identifying the element with class, it's little risky. So in that case, in this case, we use something known as CSS selectors or Xpaths. Okay, we'll talk about Xpaths first, and then we'll talk about CSS selectors. But one thing, if you look at this, then this is a link. Okay, this is the link learn more. In Selenium, you can also find the elements with the link text. It's called the anchor tag, right? If an element has the anchor tag, then it's a link. So you can write the code that is driver.find element by the link text learn more. You have the locator strategy link text. Find the element and you click on it. So if you run this, so you see that it clicks on it. It was quite fast again. Right. And you have the next page opening up. And if you go back, you will have the regular login page. My PC is also running a little slow. Okay. So you have this good thing that you can identify them with ID, name, or link text. But if three of them are not there, you have got something known as XPath. Now, XPath is something you can say it represents the address of the element on the web page. Like you have an address, okay, and that address uniquely identifies you. So similarly, the XPath is like the address of the element on the web page. Okay, now about XPaths, let's do one thing, guys. Let's take the XPath tomorrow. I'm not able to speak that much. I think by tomorrow it will be fine. Okay. So we'll do XPaths tomorrow, but whatever we did today was good enough. We saw it's a simple command driver.find element, and you just need to change the locator strategy over here. You can use link text, you can use ID, and you can use name. These are the most simple form of locator strategies. In case the element is not found, you can use a little global wait driver.manage.timeouts. This is global and it has to be given once after opening the browser, and it is applicable to all driver.find element commands, and it is dynamic. If the element is not found in 20 seconds, it will wait. Sorry, and it will keep on polling. If it is found in on the 10th second, it will click on the element and it is going to use the element. Okay, so anyone with any questions? Anything?
Ashish?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. Ashish, see for example, I have prepared a login script, okay? Can you tell me how can I share that script with my client? Like I have promised I will share a weekly updates with him. So I successfully make a login script, but how
You
will I,
can upload the project on GitHub and share the link. The project he can download and run that.
can't I share just a GRE file or something?
Jar file.
Yeah.
You can do that, but that will be
I'm not
complicated.
clear what to share with him. So can you tell me a
Has he
simple
got
thing?
Eclipse? Has he got
Yeah.
Eclipse?
I will tell him to download.
Look, right now I cannot tell you, but you can also make an exe of your project, which
Okay.
I'm going to tell you in coming time. When you
Okay.
run that single exe, the project starts running. But for
Okay.
time being, you can ask him to install Eclipse, and you can simply, instead of using GitHub only, since you are in beginning phase, you
Okay.
can simply zip your project and send it to him. You
Ah,
can
okay.
show him. Okay.
Yep, yep, yep. Perfect. Thank you.
And or if
Ashish,
it's a single Java file, you can send him that Java file. But he will have to import the jar files.
Okay, I will let him know. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
Ashish.
Yeah.
Ashish, are you provide any documentation regarding these classes?
Look, I have no docs, honestly, because these are not some things which you can learn through docs. It's through only practice or watching the videos. As you go on with the course, you'll understand. There are so many dependencies and ifs and buts over here. Okay, the documentation is for the commands, but how to effectively use these commands only comes up with practice, nothing else. Okay, now write a script. You should go and write a script which can simply say log you inside your Facebook accounts. Try to write that script and hold on. I'll give you some exercises. Hold on.